Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 96, verse 12. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Maybe we can just send a reminder in WhatsApp that we have started the study. Okay, so Surah 96, verse 12. It says, or advocate righteousness. So maybe I should read from verse 9. It says, have you seen the one who enjoins others from praying? Is it not better for him to follow the guidance or advocate righteousness? If he disbelieves and turns away, does he not realize that God sees? Indeed, unless he refrains, we will take him by the forelock, a forelock that is disbelieving and sinful. Let him then call on his helpers. We will call the guardians of hell. You shall not obey him. You shall fall prostrate and draw near. So when we look at these verses, I think one of the things that stands out, as we shared earlier, is this is the first chapter that was revealed to Muhammad, first chapter of the Quran that was revealed, and we can see that among other things, it talks about the forelock, and basically it's interesting that it talks about this part because we know from science now that the frontal cortex is the part of your brain that is responsible for all the decision making that goes into your head, right? And so the sinful forelock is the part of their brain from where they're making all these sinful decisions, and that's why we can see that the verse is referring specifically to the forelock, and it says, unless you refrain, we'll take him by the forelock, a forelock that is disbelieving and sinful. So God says, have you seen the one who enjoins others from praying? So there are people that will discourage other people from praying to God, and discourage other people from doing the contact prayers. And we have several examples of that. People who make statements about the contact prayers, saying like they're robotic motions and God doesn't need your prayers and stuff like that. Satan comes in various ways from all these human devils and tries to mislead the human being into talking them out of doing their contact prayers. And God said it's not better for them to follow the guidance instead. What they're doing is so horrible for them. Words cannot describe how bad it is for a person who's doing that. And so it's better for him to advocate righteousness. God says if he disbelieves and turns away, does he not see that God sees? God sees everything, right? He has control of your frontal cortex and everything else in your body, for that matter. He controls every single part of your body, and every single thought that goes into your head. God knows it, and he holds you responsible for all your innermost thoughts. And so this is what goes on in a person's mind, right? And God says you shall not obey him, you shall fall prostrate and draw near, because there are people that will want you to listen to them in this and try to influence you into following Satan in this area. And so we should be careful not to do that. Surah 97, Destiny, Al-Qadr. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. We revealed it in the night of destiny. How awesome is the night of destiny! The night of destiny is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the Spirit descend therein by their Lord's leave to carry out every command. Peaceful it is until the advent of the dawn. SubhanAllah. So this is a night that is the 27th night of Ramadan. This is the month of Ramadan. Praise be to God. And we're reading these verses for a reason, mashallah. It's a blessing from God to have this night. This is the night, as it says, that the Quran was revealed. to Muhammad, and God says it's better than 1,000 months. So imagine worshiping God in this night. I mean, how significant is that going to be for your soul if you're worshiping God for this time? If you think about it, right? I mean, just Ramadan in general, is something that is so amazing for us, and we are, blessed by God, to have this month where we can substantially grow our soul by fasting from dawn to sunset. But at the same time, God has given us this powerful night where we are able to commemorate God throughout the night and grow our soul substantially, because this night is better than 1,000 months. Now, Satan has made it possible for the disbelievers or the hypocrites to be confused about the night of destiny. So even if they try, they can never experience this night because they're discouraged from it, because they're always, as you can see, they're always fasting like one day after, and they think it's the odd night. So when they miss the night by going one night after, they're off, and they're never gonna be able to get to that point even. But even if they did, obviously that's not gonna help them in any way. But God doesn't even want them to have any share of any sort in just even observing this night and celebrating this night. So we're extremely fortunate and lucky, first of all, to know exactly when that night is and being able to commemorate God on that night, being able to meditate on God's attributes, being able to commemorate God. And the Messenger of the Covenant talks about this night, saying that on the Day of Judgment, many people will be resurrected as babies, and there will be people who will be resurrected where their souls will be smaller than a cat, but there'll be people whose souls will be a size of, he mentioned the state of Arizona, which is huge, and you can imagine that will happen based on the growth of our souls. So if our souls are grown, they will be big and well nourished and will be able to withstand God's physical presence. Now, this night is very important for us because commemorating God on that night is, the reward for this is magnified manifold, like 1,000 times or more. And so that's a lot of credit for your soul if you can commemorate God on that night, And so, we as human beings are doing sins all the time, and we're unaware of God much of our time. And so this day, this night alone, allows us to make up for that, as much as possible. And not that it's a substitute in any way, but, it allows us to get that kickstart, for our souls. So it's a huge, huge blessing for our soul. I mean, imagine like when you need a little bit of credit to make it, and your soul needs to a little bit, just to go from lower heaven to high heaven, right? I mean, what would you do, right? At that time, you can't do anything. But now we have the opportunity to get advantage of this special night and substantially grow our soul in leaps and bounds on this night. Get a feast for our souls, right? And so this is a blessing from God. And God says the angels and the Spirit descend therein by God's leave. So on that night specifically, the angels come down, and when they see people praying to God, they'll see what their dearest wishes, and God will allow them, allow their wishes to be answered. The angels will be there to, by God's leave, to help people. Like God is the one who's doing everything. Of course, we are not giving angels any power, but this is His system that, to have anything done, He sends down His angels to do these things by God's leave. So we should pray to God, to help us on that night specifically, and the angels will be there and will be taking care of these things, as it says. They come down on this night to carry out every command, right? So what are these commands? These commands are, commands from God, in accordance with His will to do things to help people. God's messenger talks about how, for example, the angels are the best surgeons. If there's anything beginning in your body or your soul, and they can fix it. If there's like things stuck in your immigration or whatever, they can go and make changes and fix things. And God knows how He works in mysterious ways. So He can allow these things to be fixed correctly. So all your matters that are things that need to be looked into, and you're praying to God to improve your circumstances in life, whatever they may be. This is the night where that also happens. As a bonus for believers, obviously, God doesn't need to do all of this stuff, right? I mean, we're here to commemorate God, and we should just commemorate God and save our souls. But God allows all these blessings to come our way because He's the most merciful and kind and generous, and clement. And so God allows this night to be, a night for us where we can get all these gifts. I mean, Satan has his own night, right, where he gives gifts to people, right? Santa Claus comes, for example, on Christmas, and people get gifts, right? But this is better than any of those nights. This is better than anything, any night that anyone can ever have, or any gifts anyone can ever hoard, right? But these are eternal blessings for our soul. And so God gives us those gifts also on that night where our prayers are answered also as a result. So when we are fortunate enough to know when that night is, this is the 27th night of Ramadan. Now, we have to remember that the night always comes before the day. So it was going to be the 27th night. So from the day that you start fasting, it's going to be 27 days into it. And you're going to observe it the day before. So it's because it's the 27th night. So technically speaking, you're going to do it on the 26th day of Ramadan. So the day you're going to do your 26th day of fasting, that's after breaking your fast. The night will start at sunset, and it's going to go on until dawn, and you're going to commemorate God. And God says, peaceful it is until the advent of the dawn. So the night will be peaceful. You'll be protected by God. Obviously, you have to be protected by God on this wonderful night when you have all these angels there. It will not be a time for Satan to come in and inflict you stuff, especially if you're commemorating God. So this would be a peaceful night for all the believers. Obviously, doesn't apply to people who are in Satan's kingdom, right? So it's not like, oh, there will be no crimes. Like someone was saying, oh, like, I hate to bring that up, but someone was, at one time I heard someone saying like, oh, we should look at the news and statistics and see, how safe it is, on that night. But it applies to the believers only. You have to be in God's kingdom. Obviously, if you're in Satan's kingdom, you're not going to be protected by God, and you can see like all kinds of things happen to people, right? But for the believers, it's the best night of the year, where you can grow your soul and commemorate God. So if on any night you can commemorate God, this should be the night that you must commemorate God from dawn to sunrise, to from sunset to dawn. To get the most out of this night for your soul. God will now continue to Surah 98, the proof, Al-Bayna. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Those who disbelieved among the people of the scripture, as well as the idol worshippers, insist on their ways despite the proof given to them. A messenger from God is reciting to them sacred instructions. In them there are valuable teachings. And then the footnote says, I think I didn't read the footnote for 97.1. I'll read that first. It says the Quran was placed into Muhammad's soul on the 27th night of Ramadan, 13 BH before Hijrah. See also 17.1, 44.3, 53, 1 through 18, and Appendix 28. And then footnote for 98, 1 through 2 says the proof of the Quran's mathematical code, Appendix 1, and the messenger is the Quran's mathematical code, Appendix 1, and the messenger is Rashad Khalifa. The number of the Surah 98 plus the verse number 2 plus the numerical value of Rashad Khalifa adds up to be 1330, or 19 times 70, the same total as in 8119, see Appendix 2, right? So these are proofs from God that enable us to recognize, the connection between the verses and the messenger that is being talked about, the mathematical proofs here. And people who think this is like numerology and is insignificant, obviously, have lost, the chance to be redeemed by God and to appreciate such a great miracle. Obviously, the Quran's mathematical code is extraordinary, and it's one of the ultimate miracles, and you have to be fortunate enough to be able to recognize it. People who are hypocrites, they will always have doubt in their minds, and they will not understand Quran's mathematical miracle, and they will not be able to appreciate it. But thank God that, mashallah, we are able to see the extraordinary dimensions of this great miracle. We were born at a time, an era where, in the age of computers, where we have been able to look at this miracle and appreciate its greatness. In the age of science, where everybody wants proof, we have this great miracle where we don't have to look like idiots. People who go and tell people that their religion is the only religion, but submission is the only religion. We know from this mathematical evidence that is the only religion approved by God, the only religion acceptable to God. And if you're not a submitter, to God alone, your religion is not going to be accepted by God. If you're committing idol worship of any sort, you're going to be destined for hell for eternity. So this is a great opportunity for us to appreciate that such a powerful miracle that God has given us to show us that this is the right path. And God says a messenger from God is reciting to them sacred instructions, right? And so we see that this is very important because people who discredit the information, the extremely important, extremely valuable instructions, what God calls here as sacred instructions, and so these are the instructions that you hear from the messenger when you watch these audios and videos, essentially, right? And then you have people discouraging people, talking them out of it, trying to equate it to hadith and sunnah, which is obviously a lie. But we have documented evidence of a messenger by God. This information is preserved for all humanity to come. Now, given that now we have like generative AI, which will create videos for Einstein and all these other people that didn't live to be at an age where all of this stuff was technically possible. They're adding all these videos and stuff, but nevertheless, we have dated material from way back, right, which shows historically that this was by the messenger of the covenant, and God allowed the messenger to come at a time where this stuff was not invented yet, so people would have a reason to doubt, so we have information and we have these videos that have been uploaded to all the social media sites, dated material, so people can see it. Right, mashallah, and so that disbelievers will not have a chance to argue with other people, especially for those people who uploaded these digital assets, before all of this, generative AI advancements took place, and so God says there are valuable teachings in them. Many people will even discourage people from listening to that, saying that people will make these things in the future and it's not good, etc. But this is a blessing from God that we will be able to see that, God willing. So God willing, I'll continue reading. It says, in fact, those who receive the scripture does not dispute until the proof was given to them. All that was asked of them was to worship God, devoting the religion absolutely to Him alone, observe the contact prayer, salat, and give the obligatory charity. Such is the perfect religion. Those who disbelieved among the people of the scripture and the idol worshippers have incurred the fire of Gehenna forever. They are the worst creatures. Those who believed and led a righteous life are the best creatures. Their reward at their Lord is the gardens of Eden with flowing streams, wherein they abide forever. God is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Him. Such is a reward for those who reverence their Lord. So the people of the scripture, referring to Jews, Christians, and Muslims, did not dispute the truth until the proof was given to them. Now they have the proof, they have the evidence, and then now they're disputing it, right? And God says all that was asked of them, after the miracle was given to them, then they turned disbelievers. Like people were Muslims, but when the messenger came and gave them the proof, they decided to become disbelievers and rejectors in the proof and started disputing it, right? And so this could be something that you could see in our lifetime too, when people are seemingly believers and then the mathematical proofs comes and then they start turning into rejectors, right? And so this shows that these people are disbelievers, and they disbelieved. All that was asked of them was to uphold the commandments, to observe the contact prayers, give the charity, and dedicate themselves to God alone. But they didn't. And God says these people, including the idol worshippers and the disbelievers, have incurred the fire of Gehenna forever. These are the worst creatures. And on the other hand, people who believed and led a righteous life by, choosing to, worship God alone freely, these are the best creatures, right? So you have the worst creatures, and then you have the best creatures, right? This is a distinction. And you can see how that distinction will play in the hereafter. The worst creatures will be in the worst place anywhere that exists, which will be hell, and the believers will be in the best place ever that exists, will be heaven, high heaven and low heaven, which would be the reward that God talks about here, the Garden of Eden, where there is, flowing streams, all the blessings, spouses, provisions, anything that you can possibly imagine will be at your fingertips, right? So it's an amazing offer. No wonder every human being came down to take this chance. But the thing is, like, they could have been just satisfied with the lower heaven, but they were arrogant and they thought that test was going to be easy and they're all going to go to high heaven maybe, and they thought, and they decided to, expose their ego in this way. And so as a result, many of them are doomed, right? But there's the minority of the minority, obviously, who have a chance to actually make it, right? And so this is a blessing for the believers that, God has created this whole universe for this very purpose. The whole test is designed for those minority individuals to be redeemed by God, So may God allow us to be one of those people and not one of the worst creatures, May God allow us to become one of the best creatures. It's up to God to guide us in that path, but the initial choice is ours, to be with God or to be with Satan, and then God takes over, so we should continuously implore God for guiding us and keeping us on that track. That's the decision that we make, and then God takes care of the rest. Obviously, we have to be ready to take action and, ready to follow God, when the guidance is manifested to us. And that's our decision, Everything happens in your frontal cortex, as we read, So, Surah 99, the quake, Az-Zalzala, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. When the earth is severely quaked, and the earth ejects its loads, the human being will wonder, what is happening? On that day it will tell its news, that your Lord has commanded it. On that day the people will issue from every direction to be shown their works. Whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. So on the day of judgment, as we can see from these verses, the surah title is the quake. The earth is going to quake severely, and God says the earth will come and tell its news, and then on that day people will issue in every direction to be shown their works. And God says whoever does an atom's weight of good or evil will see it. Now, obviously, people who are on the right path, people who are being guided by God, they will be able to wipe out their evil works with this with the good works, right? But other than that, everything that you did, if it's not overlooked by God in the sense of forgiveness that God has given us, in the sense of prayers that we did, whatever you deserve, whatever you have incurred will be on that record, for you to be weighed on, so your scale is going to be absolutely just, and everybody will have the same scale, right? And based on that, God is the most just, and He will make sure that if you did something that is an atom's weight higher than someone else, you're gonna be uh, you know compensated for that with your rank, your eternal rank in the hereafter, right? This is an amazing system that only God provides, right? I mean, no one has this kind of compensation for anybody in this world, right? I mean, people are always, generalized in some fashion when it comes to their compensation, But in this scenario where it counts for us more than ever, God has the perfect system where nothing, even something as tiny and insignificant as an atom's weight, what would that be, right? Imagine like just passing some through, going on a walk maybe, and just seeing a random stranger who looks at you and makes a face and you think he doesn't like you, that might be something, a hurting thought, something tiny as a mustard seed, that will be in your record, how you treated that situation, right? So we should look at this life in this fashion, right? Like every moment is a chance for us. In every moment in life, no matter how insignificant it may seem, is a chance for us to go either in the positive or in the negative, right? We're not going to be stagnant, and it's a chance for you to move forward or move backwards. And if you gain a little bit of a credit, or if you gain something negative, that's all going to add up eventually, right, in your record. So we have to look at it as that there's nothing that goes like unaccounted for, especially if God overlooks a lot of our sins, right? But if you do good deeds, all your good deeds will be counted for. God counts all your good deeds as long as you're not an idol worshiper. Every single one of them will be in your record. Even God says, a little bit of thirst, you cross the valley, a little bit of struggle, everything will be accounted for, right? Now we're fasting, it's Ramadan, we are thirsty, hungry. God is counting all of that, right? All the efforts we're making in the cause of God, God is counting each and every one of those things. If you spend an extra hour or extra minute, striving in the cause of God, that is being accounted for, to the millisecond or smaller, right? God has kept record of everything. Be glorified. God willing, I'll continue reading Surah 100, the Gallopers, Al-Adiyat. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. By the fast gallopers igniting sparks, invading the enemy by morning, striking terror therein, penetrating to the heart of their territory. The human being is unappreciative of his Lord. He bears witness to this fact. He loves material things excessively. Does he not realize that the day will come when the graves are opened and all secrets are brought out? They will find out on that day that their Lord has been fully cognizant of them. So the title of this chapter is The Gallopers, referring to the horses that gallop. And when people fought during wars, they used these galloping horses, to invade the enemy fearlessly. They go into the front lines and attack, knowing the danger that lies ahead. They see, for example, in the wars of the old times, they saw like sharp objects and stuff, people carrying swords and stuff, and they saw other horses, for example, being killed and stuff, but they fearlessly, in submission to God, they go in and they do what God has commanded them to do, to be subservient for humans, and be fearless and go in this fashion, without caring about their lives, and going and fighting. So this is something that God has recognized here. But for us to also reflect on as a blessing from God, and God is swearing by that, to say that these fast gallopers, when they ignite sparks like their horseshoes, right? They ignite sparks as they go so fast, and they obviously, they're making that galloping sounds, as they go, like this, going to. I can't do it with my. I used to be able to do it in the past, but so I mean, they strike terror when they go. I mean, there is an effect of that when people come as a consolidated army. I mean, those sounds itself will be so scary for the enemy. That's why it says striking terror there, and like machine guns, right? Striking terror with those sounds, not as terrible, but you get the idea. And God says the human being, so God is swearing by that blessing that God has given us. And God is swearing by that the human being is unappreciative of his Lord. And I mean, I'm sure never in a million years did these people thank God, these disbelievers, thank God for these horses, or any other blessings for that matter, that God has given us. We take these blessings for granted. All those blessings, think about all the blessings that we have right now. The fact that you and I are able to have this Quran study from the comfort of our homes without going outside in the cold or anything, it's a blessing from God. Right? There's so many others, like the perfect room temperature, that you're not out in the freezing cold or the scorching heat of the sun. You're just enjoying your study in your comfort of your home, at a perfect temperature, God willing, with a roof over your head. And so these are all blessings from God that we must recognize. God says a human being is unappreciative. He bears witness to this fact. He knows he's unappreciative. And God says he loves material things excessively. Humans love material things excessively. They're always, the whole life, if we see, the human beings are just busy hoarding. They're going to work, they're going to school, all this, just for hoarding material things. So they can have a car, they can have a house, and have spouses and children and grandchildren. I mean, that's the extent of their knowledge and extent of their goals when it comes to this life, to hoard as much material as possible, as much material wealth as possible. But that's unappreciativeness, right? Because when God has given you all these things, instead of making this your goal should be to appreciate God, to praise God, to recognize Him, recognize His authority, and given the chance that God has given us to redeem ourselves, we should be using this time to appreciate that, and striving towards a better hereafter, than this world, which is going to end as soon as we leave this world. So what is the point of all of this if none of this is gonna matter as soon as you leave? I mean, we don't understand while we're alive how short this life is until it's the end of our life. Then we realize, oh wow, like I did all this stuff for what? Right? I mean, imagine the day you're going to leave this world. All these things that you accomplish in terms of material wealth are going to be nothing, right? And so you're going to think about and have regrets, And so we don't want to be one of those people to have those regrets, When the day comes that we have to leave this world, we should know that we should feel comfortable. We should live our lives in a way that we should feel comfortable leaving this world, realizing that we made the best use of our time in this world, right? Time is very important commodity. The most precious thing you have here in this world is your time, because it's very short, right? And because it's very short, you should use it very carefully. Don't overindulge yourself in meaningless stuff, right? I mean, right now, it's very easy for people to get distracted by this life. I mean, there's so many distractions around us more than ever, and people are getting distracted by the things of this world. But we have to use this time wisely, appreciating the chance that God has given us and worshiping Him as much as possible. Uh, and we have to be mindful of the day of judgment. It says, "Does he not realize that the day will come when the graves are opened and all secrets are brought out? They will find out on that day that their Lord has been fully cognizant of them," right? So we have to be mindful of the day of judgment and live accordingly. God will continue. Surah 101, the shocker, Al-Qari'ah. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. The shocker. What a shocker. Do you have any idea what the shocker is? That is the day when the people come out like swarms of butterflies. The mountains will be like fluffy wool. As for him whose weights are heavy, he will lead a happy eternal life. As for him whose weights are light, his destiny is lowly. Do you know what it is? The blazing hellfire. Right now we understand all these are allegories, right? The blazing hellfire. But, you can imagine how painful it is to experience the blazing hellfire. I mean, that's not, even the magnitude of how painful it's going to be way worse. But God has given us the allegory. It's beyond what we can withstand in this world. Well, we cannot withstand blazing hellfire. I mean, we cannot withstand blazing fire in this world. So how are we going to withstand the retribution in the hereafter, right? Which is going to be much worse. And God says, people whose weights are light, their destiny is lowly. That's the destiny. They're just going to be suffering hell in darkness, misery, no happiness whatsoever, just eternal doom, total depression for the rest of eternity. Can you imagine that? I mean, worse than any depression anyone can get in this world. Even the most depressed person in this world, will be very happy knowing that, eventually there's an exit, if they knew there was an exit of some sort. But there will, and there is always, some kind of an exit, but there's no exit of any sort for the disbelievers, right? And so you can imagine, I cannot imagine, I cannot put my mind in that state to think that, someone can go in that state of mind where they know that they're just going to suffer forever. It's a very sad state to be in for these people, unfortunately, but these people are not believers, so they're not going to realize until it's too late. And then Surah 102, I'm going to read Al-Takathur, hoarding. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, you remain preoccupied with hoarding until you go to the graves. Indeed, you will find out, most surely you will find out. So this is a warning for us, We are preoccupied in this world. We humans are preoccupied with hoarding, going to work, going to school, just so you can make more money and hoard more money. People are hoarding money. Hopefully you're not one of them, but there are people that are just hoarding money. They have loads and loads of money and they want loads and loads more, and they're hungry for it, and they're keeping it in their bank accounts, millions and millions of dollars or whatever the currency may be, for what? Right? They should be spending it in the cause of God for their hereafter. And what happens when they leave? They just leave all this stuff to be given to someone else. It just goes to waste. All their works, all their time and effort that they put in, it goes to waste. So God is, reiterating that, this is what the human being is after. I mean, how crazy is that? Because, what happened to our initial commitment to God, to worship Him? That's why we came here. And people have just forgotten about that, and they're just, running like, monkeys running after like bananas or something, just crazy, just not even looking. And God says He made them despicable as monkeys and pigs, right? A bad example for these people, like they are completely clueless. So may God allow us to set better examples for ourselves. May God allow us to experience and live a life of devotion and submission to God, where we are not wasting our time and we're making the best use of our energy, our time, our money to serve God. Because even though like it may seem like something that's totally off when you look at the rest of the world, obviously they are the ones who are off, right? This was where humans were supposed to be. This is why we came here. This is what this whole life is about. But people have forgotten the purpose in life. So may God allow us to serve our purpose, to worship our Creator as much as we can. And with this, God willing, I will end. If you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free.
MashaAllah, thank you.
You're welcome.
MashaAllah, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Okay, brother, I have a question
Mm-hmm.
for 98:6 and 98:7. So when God is saying these verses, is he talking about just the human, or is he talking about all the creatures that he has created?
Sorry, what verse again?
98:6 and 98:7, the worst creatures and the best creatures.
Okay, 98, 6, and 7. Yes. So, what was your question about that? Sorry.
If God is talking about just the humans, or is he talking about all his creatures he created?
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about among all his creatures that God has created, right? I mean, we're given this time, to choose, and if we choose to worship God, out of our own free will, you know, um, we turn into the best creatures, because despite all these things that we're put into, we still chose to stick to God at the end. So that's a huge achievement. Obviously, angels did not even want that, or would not even want that. But we went through it somehow, got ourselves in that position. So God says these are the best creatures. So those best creatures go to the best place, which is like high heaven, let's say, right? Or low heaven. And so both jinns and the human beings are both in that test. They both go through it and eventually redeemed by God, right? As a result. So obviously, that wouldn't be possible if God wasn't forgiver, most merciful. But God overlooks and forgives them, right? So that's why it's wiped out of their record. Like, they're not. It's not held against them anymore that they were undecisive, right? They finally came here and they made the right choice. So in that sense, they can get the credit and be the best creatures.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that's, only possible with God, right? The mercy that God has, if you can imagine it. I mean, someone who is the ruler of, all these galaxies and everything, and then, you question their authority. Imagine if you did that to someone in this world, I mean, you will never be treated the same way as the others who didn't. But God will forgive these people and reward them on top of it. I mean, that's something that is hard to wrap our minds around.
MashaAllah, brother. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, because without God's help, guidance, I mean, like nobody really can be good. Without His forgiveness, without uh, His mercy, like you had said, like, you know, so really it's because of God. I mean, God make us come through us. But Yeah, I like what you said about the priorities. Most people forgot their purpose. They've neglected their purpose, so they don't. Their priorities are confused as to why they're here. And we can see, all the evidence, all the troubles and stuff, just that I hear or see, like on a not a daily basis, but just here and there from people, whether it's marital issues or it's um, they're completely lost and they don't realize it, you know. So yeah, it can seem, it's like the messenger said, like to be blessed with this and to worship God alone and discard the worship of all idols. No Jesus, no Mary, no saints, no Muhammad, no ego. May God help us with all of these things. That's going against the grain. That's like the exception. Because in this world, at least as humans are concerned, the rule is to rebel. Because we can see the vast majority of people are
Mm-hmm.
completely oblivious and averse.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a real blessing to have this, especially to have the miracle too. Because anything, just being able to look at it again, there's just the simple facts, and even just the letters, ALM, and all the initials, and all the 14 pairs, the 29 sets, or excuse me, the 7 pairs. Yeah, 7. Is that right? Yeah, 7 pairs.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, all the different initials and how it, and it's not in the book that like preaches idol worship. Notice, because that confirms that this is like the truth. Like the miracle confirms God alone, and then the logical monotheistic instinct that we should have and like take advantage of God alone confirms the miracle. Because notice this miracle never came in a book that preaches like Buddha or some nonsense or paganism. Like subhanallah, it confirms each other. If you kind of know what I mean. It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like naturally, only a miracle is going to be sent preaching the true message. God alone, and logically, like it makes the most sense. It's like not like it's um, it's the simplest to understand and capitalize. And of course, we have our jinn that is growing in his or her better qualities.
Mm-hmm.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, and I find verse 4 of Surah 98 interesting about, in fact, those who received the scripture did not dispute until the proof was given to them. And how a messenger from God was reciting to them sacred instructions. So, because, yeah, we can see in the next verse 5, all that's asked of people is to worship God alone, devoting religion to your Creator. Like how insignificant is a human being, like in comparison to a solar system or even a galaxy? It's like not even a fly or a tick or a flea. And people sit here and worship humans, and people worship themselves, and may God protect us from these things, help us to purify us, because, like you had said, brother, like an atom's weight, I think that's the best mindset to truly have, and I think you almost have to have a mindset like that if you want to make it to heaven,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to be so careful, like even something we say, like, you know, I was talking about the weather to somebody, and I was just making conversation, you know, just making conversation, but I was saying something like, you know, this was a few weeks ago, like, oh man, it's probably gonna be pretty cold tonight. I forget exactly how I phrased it, but I mean, even that Satan could look at that and like, oh look, John's complaining about the weather. You know, I mean, like, what that statement in comparison to Adam's wage is probably could be valid. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, like really, like I really thought about it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, even though I was just making conversation, that can be taken as a complaint, like I'm objecting, like
Mm-hmm.
just saying, like, you know, like even in a slight tone, kind of like I think you had said, like, or the example you gave, brother, you know, I mean, anything. I mean, an Adam's weight is, I mean, how big is an atom? We can't even see that. So I think that type of carefulness is very helpful. And of course, those who believe in God and believe in like, you know, being accountable are gonna you know, act on that. We can see most people, if you talk to them about this information or these concepts, you know, and these really the truth, not even concepts, conceptual truth, if you want to call it that, they're not gonna really understand, or they're gonna object to it, or they're just gonna you know, most people I talk to like, oh no, you're okay. So and so died for you, so you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're playing a dangerous game that they're so sure that someone's gonna come rescue them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
only God can rescue you. Only that belongs to God alone. That's one of His qualities. To give that to another human being like Jesus is evil. I mean, that's trying to steal. I mean, that was a Goliath that's trying to steal away. I mean, they can't do it, but they utter blasphemies, like the Quran says. They're trying to attribute lies to God and then take His quality as the most gracious, most merciful, and then give it to a human being. You know, it's like, no, that's not possible. You know? But I mean, of course, may God guide, you know, these people continue to guide us. Yeah, I guess like I'll bring it up sometimes, brother. I don't know if it bring that up too much, but I just saw like I had to delete a comment, you know, on a nice post, like someone was praising, it's like yeah, it's like a divert. I mean, you can see, you know, I don't know what they're just uh, not looking into it, or they're just kind of reacting and without really reading the content or something, you know. But yeah, it's like I see it so much. There was a billboard when I drive back to town. It says, I mean, I looked away from it because it was like kind of really off-putting. But yeah, they had a picture of Jesus and it says Christ is king, you know, and then they had a picture of him, of supposedly what he looked like, and then, you know, he's raising his hand. I'm like, this is an electronic billboard. You know, and I'm just like, man, it's so bad. What, you know, but, yeah, it
The
made me
only
think. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, brother John.
I was just gonna say, like, it made me think too of the verse about hoarding money and gold. You know, like how people will even go as far as to spend their money in promoting a bad message that, I mean, they don't realize what they're doing, but just like that billboard, you know, hoarding this money or actively using it to promote a message, that's not in line with the truth.
I was gonna say, it's like you said, brother, they're hurting their own souls. You know, it's the only unforgivable sin. Idol worship, and you see almost everybody committed. In this road in some type of way. Either it's their children or material things, but we know that it's the only unforgivable sin if maintained until death. And you see mostly everyone, in this world committing that sin. You know. Mashallah, that should keep us, in our we should be close to God. Ask God to protect us. Because it could be in our work, or going somewhere. Like, where like you see these things. And people committing these very bad things. And then, it should keep us, always thinking about God, and reading the verses in the Quran that protects us, from Satan and the whispers of the devils, from these things, and their schemes.
Yeah, what do y'all think about the verse where it says, Lord?
Which verse is
It's 100, verse 6 and 7. Like, bearing witness, most people, maybe if they don't realize it, but I mean, some people, I guess, will openly agree, like, talk about that, but
just like the way um like like every human being is here to worship God. um God says the human being is unappreciative of his Lord. like probably in a way, like the way he's carrying himself, the way how he's hands, and being unappreciative of God's mercy, really, in the way he's bearing witness to that, in that way.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like, I mean, not thanking God before or after you eat something. Like the messenger said. I think during the Night of Destiny recording, it was it's like why we say Bismillah before we eat something,
Mm-hmm.
just to thank God and show our appreciation. Because I mean, I like the song on creation, but there's a lyric in it that says, "If you will, it could all be gone." I don't know.
Mashallah, that's a nice song, brother. About that
Yeah, I
yesterday.
mean, it's really beautiful because I mean, the hearing, the eyesight, and whatever something else it says, and if you will, like
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't have your hearing or eyesight tomorrow, and you just woke up in this black abysmal consciousness, which could happen, God. I mean, without God, what would we have? We'd have nothing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these are alarming things or scary things to think about, but I think like in growing our souls and like being appreciative, uh, to God, we can, because it's like like what's the other alternative? The devil's the other alternative. So it's the worst alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing we would have. I mean, just like Brother Suleman said, I mean, just having a climate controlled atmosphere, these cell phones, to have Quran studies. I mean, just things to look at, just like stimulus. I mean, imagine being in a white room with nothing. You don't hear anything. Maybe you can see the white walls, but I mean, just having like colors, is a blessing.
Mashallah, brother.
I mean, I guess what's helped me is like I'll think about what it would be like to be without these things. Really, because it's almost like thinking about what it's to be like without God. Is may God help creation of Him every day. Mashallah, especially during Ramadan. It's a month, like we read, the Night of Destiny, and this month we can do a lot to grow our souls, spread the message, work on different things. Inshallah, I need to work on some audios, transcriptions.
Yeah,
Yeah, I keep saying I downloaded that app AEGIS or whatever, but it is pretty awesome. It's a lot faster that you yeah, yeah, inshallah.
Mashallah, brother. I mean, it's a huge blessing too. Like the YouTube channel. The um the submitters YouTube channel. Like everything's there. The videos, the audios. Like that itself is such a blessing. Like you just pop it up. You go on the internet. And you have just a huge blessing. And of course, it's a huge responsibility too. But mashallah, it's it's actually really amazing, huh, brother? Mm-hmm. No, alhamdulillah.
verse 102 about hoarding. About how people you remain preoccupied with hoarding until you go to the graves. So that's yeah, it's like you said, it's interesting. It's like to see. I mean, what the verses are talking about, like how people are gonna be, or people are completely preoccupied, like until death comes to them. And it's like imagine having that level of regret, and you realize, man, this stuff was nothing. It was just an illusion. It wasn't even real. You know, it's almost like, like I mean, maybe this is a bad example, but like playing in a video game that it's all none of it's real. The money or the points in it is all fake. But however you play it, um, is extremely important. But like most people are just that becomes they lose their sight. Yeah, I like playing a video. I'll if there's like nice, yeah, right, yeah. It's almost, well, no, I won't say that, but yeah, I mean, it's there's so much wisdom in this book. And I like what you said at the beginning about uh yeah, I mean, about our contact prayers. I mean, it's a blessing from God, and there's people who would try to discourage you from doing them or even talk you out of it. You know, I mean, imagine you get clear instructions from the Lord of the universe on the best way to pray, the best way to make contact. It's all mathematically coded. I mean, why would you not want that? Because I mean, in the sense of thinking like of being lost. I mean, imagine if somebody tells you you need to do this and this, and they don't tell you how to do it. You're just kind of left maybe to your own devices, and you have no idea of like, okay, but imagine if you get clear instructions, like, okay, this is how you do it. This is the best way. It's yeah, that's because you don't have to. I mean, in the sense of like, uh, you know, God bless. Yeah.
Salam. Bless you guys.